Hi there, my name is Nicole Hebert with the Moose Show Journey to Hope team, and this is Voices of Hope.
Hey, my name is Barry Stewart. I'm 60 years old, so getting up there. I recently retired after 39 years of primarily public sector employment, although I've done quite a bit of consulting in the private sector. Had been married to a wonderful woman for 38 years. She reminded me this morning that it will be 39 in April. Father of 3 grown children, one of whom lives in heaven. Grandfather of 8 incredible grandchildren. Pretty typical childhood. Of course, formative years were in the 60s and 70s. Mom was a stay-at-home mom. That's the way it was done. Family of 5. Dad was a lawyer. Boys don't cry. We're tough. Heavily involved in sports, and that's kind of where I come from. So as I mentioned, pretty typical childhood, 60s, 70s. Man's, kind of led the household. Patriarchal system. Heavily involved in sports. And my upbringing, the guys were tough. We didn't cry. What I found over the years, or at least in my journey through life, is that didn't work well for me, or probably a lot of people. It pigeonholes us. The stigmatism of we have to be a certain way wasn't going to work for me, especially when you have challenges in life. I have to credit my wife largely with my transformation from don't cry, don't show emotions, no feelings, remain tough, to probably what I hope I am today, and that's much more empathetic, understanding. But that's been a learning process, and I still fall back into some old ways from time to time when things aren't optimal. But overall, again, it's been a journey. So my perspective on mental health is things need to change, and they are starting to, but it's coming slowly. I think one of the primary things, and it's a mantra I hold, is there is no one truth. There's no one way a person could or should be, whether it's male or female. There's no singular template for life. My journey, I've learned it's not acceptable. For my survival, I need to start sharing feelings and emotions with other people. Holding it in wasn't working for me. Again, I have a family that is incredibly supportive, and that starts with my wife. Without her in my life, I don't know where I would be. So I blame or credit her for much of who I have become. But again, I still fall back at times into some old ways of thinking and doing. So it is a journey. It's not, things come in waves at times. As I mentioned, we lost a son in 2013, and I think that was the moment of truth for me as far as some needed changes. I still remember the officer coming to the door just after 4 a.m. and giving us the news that our son was involved in an accident and didn't make it. My wife fell to the floor and was just a mess, and I didn't shed a tear. I went back to my old ways of manage the situation logically, and put the emotions on the back burner, and we'll deal with them later if needed. A couple days into that, I realized that wasn't going to work for me, and I wasn't going to survive if I didn't make some changes. So lots of discussions with my wife, and I guess that's where the biggest part of my journey started, was after that. As I said, my son struggled with alcohol, and he turned to alcohol as a way to numb the pain that he was feeling from a failing marriage. We saw what that did to him, his family, and our family. I mean, he eventually did pass away, but it was almost every weekend that we were wondering if we were going to get the call from a police officer or somebody else. That's not healthy for anybody. Ken worked really hard, and he finally opened up and was, starting to get some help. So that was great. How do I feel about the mental health system? Now, again, this is back in 2012, 2013. So things have changed since then for the positive. But back then, I'd have to say, looking back on it, bitterly disappointed by what was available for mental health. It seemed to be a pass the buck attitude. If police were ever involved, it was punitive. It wasn't reconstructive at all. I believe our healthcare system, even to this day, it's gotten better, but it's underfunded, it's under-resourced. As I mentioned, there's stigmas attached to mental health versus, say, any kind of physical ailment like cancer or diabetes. The resources simply aren't available. They're few and far between. And for Ken, our son, he worked in the oil sector, and you want to talk about rough and tough guys that don't want to show emotion. That's a pretty, that's their way of life. So, how do I feel about it now? You look at programs since then that have come along. Education piece is going to be huge. Bell Let's Talk has been awesome. But again, it's, for a day or a week, and then we kind of forget about it. Locally, Journey to Hope has been amazing. But again, that's in the community of Moose Jaw. Those kind of grassroots programs need to be everywhere. All our communities need something like that, in my opinion. As far as my, where I came from, so when our son passed away, I struggled. I shared stuff with my wife, but it ended there. I had to stay strong for my daughters and the rest of my family. Jan started going to a grief group led by Della Ferguson for parents that had lost children, and she found it really positive. She kept asking me to go. Of course, I didn't need any help, right? I wasn't going to survive. I was, not feeling good about myself or anything, and why bother living? One of the deepest angers I ever had was, the role of a parent, primary role of a parent in their children's life is to protect them, and I had failed bitterly at that, or at least that's the way I felt. Eventually, she kept wearing me down, so I did go to my first grief group, and that was what I would call transformational for me. I realized I wasn't the only one, going through that kind of grief. We met with people that had, been there for 5-6 years through their journey. We were new, but everybody had some really core feelings, things that people went through as far as waves of grief, how they dealt with it. Everybody's situation's different, but there are some core things that everybody shares when they lose a child. I think, and again, the biggest, I'm a visual learner, so the biggest thing in that first meeting that Della shared, 2 graphs. One was a graph where the axis were bad to better on the vertical scale, and just a time on the bottom. And then the first graph we were given was a straight line, linear, from where we're starting, the loss of a child, and then somewhere in the future where we were better. And that's the way I thought things were going to work. And she shared that. People shared how they felt about it. You can see yourself getting better. Well, Della shared that's not the way grief is. So the next chart was the same graph, and what happened to the line? It was no longer starting in the lower left and going into the upper right where we get better. It was a curvy line that went all over the place. It went back against itself. It was like a spirograph, and she shared that is what grief is. So as far as when somebody is feeling grief, there is no simple line to get better. It's a journey, and you're going to have ups and downs. One of the views that a lot of people have is the waves. It comes in waves, and I think what I learned through the grief group and my own work is we never get better. You never get over the loss of a child, whether or a parent, or maybe it's even a pet. But the waves come, and the best we can do is learn strategies and skills to deal with those when they happen. And I was blessed at work. People knew that when I closed my door, that I probably needed a moment. So I've been blessed that way but it's a journey. We never get better. We just simply learn skills and strategies that work for us. Well, I think I'm a pretty prime example of a, old set in my ways kind of guy, coming from, old belief system, man's strong, men will cry, to a point now where, I've left myself open to change. But again, a lot of help along the way. So if I have a message of hope, is there are programs, there are people out there that can help, even well beyond what the government offers through our healthcare system. Get in touch with your local, whether it's something like Journey to Hope. We have suicide lines open. We have mental health lines open now. We need to go farther, but look into your own community first for some help. If you have family, lean on them. There are people that care. You're not alone. And it's a journey, not a sprint.